Aloha and like Flynn viewers, thank you so much for watching. Today, I have the honor and privilege of sitting down and interviewing another former Disney World cast member who has an entirely separate experience from what I had. Now, for those of you that have been watching the channel, you know that I worked at the Disney MGM studios way back in 2001. All right, so geez Louise, I'm dating myself. That is over 20 years ago. But I am today interviewing an employee who has a much more recent experience. He worked at Disney World during COVID and post-COVID, and definitely has some stories to share about his experiences there. I'll be talking about some of my experiences that I had during my time and kind of contrasting what it was like working 2001 versus 2020 and 2021. Stay tuned. We're going to have a great conversation. Aloha and like Flynn viewers, thank you so much for coming back and joining us here for another video. Today is a very special night. So last week, I was asked to be a guest on the Confessions of a Theme Park Employee podcast. Griffin reached out to me, and we had a wonderful conversation. You can actually catch the episode. I'm going to link to it in the comments, so check that out. But we had such a great conversation. Griffin's such a great dude, and he was a former cast member back in COVID times. So that was definitely a trying time to be a Disney Parks employee. So Griffin, thank you for taking time out of your evening and spending it with me as I get to reverse the tables on you and ask you questions here tonight, dude.
Absolutely. I'm so stoked to be here, and thank you so much for having me on your show, or on your channel, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so you do the audio thing, I do the video thing.
Right. This is a little out of my zone, I guess, the whole video element to it.
It's all good. I'm so jealous because your background looks a lot better than my background. People call me out on my background all the time. They're like, it's so dark. Well, like today, it's lit up and it doesn't look anything great at all. It's my basement.
It's a cool basement, though.
It is. It's like my little home theater area,
yeah.
And it's a cool little space for me. But anyway, so tonight I wanted to get into a little bit of the contrast between your experience working at Disney Parks in 2019 2021 to my experience working in 2001. I mean, we're talking a 20-year difference, and it seems like we had much different experiences in our time working for Disney Parks. So I wanted to kind of kick things off so you kind of introduce yourself and how you were actually bamboozled a little bit when you came into, or what you thought you were getting into when you started with Disney.
Right. So I was hired in August of 2019 at Disney, and my background is technical theater, specifically lighting. And I've always known that I want to work for Disney since I was 8 years old, and it's just been a goal of mine. And so I had an internship at a performing arts center in the Villages, Florida, which is like an hour north of Orlando. And I was going to use it as a stepping stone to work at Disney because it was just a summer internship. And towards the end of it, I applied for the entertainment technician role, and I got an interview in person, and then they called me and asked me a few questions, this and that. And then they got to one question and they said, well, are you 21 yet? And unfortunately, I wasn't. I think I was like 20 at the time, because this is 2019. And there's awkward pause on the phone with the recruiter, and he paused for a moment. And he said, well, unfortunately, I can't offer you this position anymore. You have to be 21 to have your pyrotechnics license. And I was just shocked. I mean, like jaw dropped moment, because everything that I had done in my entire life was to get to that point right there. And I kind of lost it for a second. I didn't cry or anything, but I guess I was kind of just paused. Like I paused myself for a second, and I kind of stood up for myself a little bit. And I was like, because he's trying to wrap up the phone call, and I said, "Is there anything else that you can do to help me out? Like I'm about to move to Orlando. I've always wanted to work for the company." He said, "Well, give me a few moments." I think like 10 minutes had passed. I was just on hold, and he comes back and he says, "Well, I have 3 positions or 3 roles for you. You can be a parking attendant and work at MK on the parking lot. You can be a friendship boat driver at Epcot," which sounds cool.
That actually does sound cool. I wanted to do that.
Yeah, and I actually have a friend who does it. I'm not sure if he's still there. Her name is Katie, but she did it, and she really likes it. But the third role that they offered me was Starbucks, Animal Kingdom. And I chose that because I hate to say it, but it's the only one that had air conditioning, to be honest. And as you know, that Florida heat and humidity is brutal. I mean, it's rough.
Bad.
It is. And so I got hired and went to Traditions, of course. And we went to Disney University, which was like a week-long course of just learning how to do Starbucks drinks. And so they had like a mock kitchen and register, everything you needed that would be at your location. So we did that, and then eventually I got to my home location at Animal Kingdom. So that's how I ended up at Disney.
Much different. So I was attractions. I worked the Disney MGM Studios backlot tour. I've actually got my jacket on here tonight, and I did not steal this jacket. I was kind of telling you before we started, when on my last day I went to go turn it in, and the costuming wardrobe department had no idea where it went or where it was from. They have these barcodes on them, and they went to go check it in. And they're like, "We have no record of this." And I was like, "What do you do with it?" And they're like, "Well, just take it." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." I still have my jacket. So I was on the attraction side of the house, and you were on food and beverage. So totally separate things. I don't know if I would be a food and beverage guy, to be totally honest. Like, out of the three jobs that they offered you, that would have probably been my last choice. I would have totally been friendship boat.
Right.
But,
yeah, and I just kept telling myself that it was just temporary, because it's supposed to be just until 2020, June 2020 is when I would have turned 21, and then after that temporary position would have been over, I would have transferred over to entertainment. So I didn't think it'd be too bad of a role to be in, but I mean I enjoyed it nonetheless. But we were different. We weren't just food and beverage. We were specialty food and beverage. So whatever that means.
All right. Well, see, there was no Starbucks when I was there, dude. That's a totally new thing. that was not there. That's totally different. And you said you did your training, not in the location itself. So you were over by Disney Springs doing your training?
No. So actually, in the same building as Traditions is held, I think it's on the first floor. I don't know if it's still there anymore, but there was like an old kitchen is really what it was, like a commercial kitchen.
Oh, okay.
And they had completely outfitted it with like POS systems, blenders, everything. I mean, everything that you would need. And there's probably about 10 of us who were in training at a time. And sometimes we would like play the role of guest, and so we would like kind of play pretend and go up to the register and order a beverage, and have someone on the other end, you're ringing it up, writing the cups, and making the beverages. I mean, it really was like a little tiny play pretend Starbucks for a whole week.
So I'm actually curious. Is there some sort of a competition? I'm wondering this now, because you got Joffrey's Coffee, which is down in the parks, but now you also have Starbucks. So do you have people comparing the coffees when you're working down there? I mean,
not really, but I know that there's a strong fan base for Joffrey's. Some people prefer Joffrey's, coffee beans over Starbucks, and that's totally cool. Nothing wrong with that at all, but no real competition as far as us cast members, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, Starbucks is pretty banging. Now, you kind of let us know that Disney was very upfront with you that you were not to be sampling any of the products that you were slinging, right?
Oh, 100%. So the only time that we could get a beverage was if we were on break and we couldn't just, ring it up on the register or have a friend ring it up for us while we're still on stage. We had to completely go out of costume, go back on stage, wait in the line, which you got to remember that these Starbucks are some of the highest profiting locations in the world. Like, I think MK is the number one location in the world. So they're a churning business. And at Starbucks, sometimes the line would be kind of long, sometimes not, just depended. But yeah, we would have to wait in line, and then when we got to the register, you order it like a normal guest, and then wait for the beverage to be ready. I mean, and that took sometimes 30 minutes, and your break is only a 15 or an hour, so it just wasn't really worth it. And then the other time we could do or try beverages or bakery items and stuff like that was for like our seasonal stuff. So we got like a new fall beverage. We'd all go backstage and learn how to make it. Then we would sample it, but we wouldn't get a whole drink to ourselves. We had these little shot glasses that had like little Starbucks things on them. I think they're called a short cup. And they'd pour them all into those. So we would split one beverage, like 10, 15 of us backstage. It's like, great.
Wow. I mean, that's
it was
ridiculous.
pitiful.
It really is. And even when you did get like a coffee or something, it had to be just
Mhm.
black, right? You said you could put milk in it and like a little bit of sugar, right? And that's it.
That is it. Yeah. So you couldn't do like half and half, or like I think you could do coconut milk, but they really were against it. It's pretty much just like drip coffee, sugar, and that's it. Like forget about putting a syrup in there. Forget about putting anything fun or whipped cream in there. I mean that's all you got. And beggars couldn't be choosers on those long shifts. So you just go back there and just or in there and make it and just drink it. I mean it wasn't bad, but they for as hard as we worked, they should have given us a little bit more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, you were in the air condition, but you were probably on your feet slinging drinks all day
Yeah.
long with long lines. So I have to imagine that was extremely stressful and tough. That's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a machine. Like I've always referred to it as a machine because whether you're on register or you're on cold bar, hot bar, or you're down at the end of the bar, like handing off the drinks, I mean, it's just nonstop. It's just doing this all day long.
Hmm.
So much so that they had some kind of like physical therapist team from Disney come in and show us like stretches to do for each specific position behind the
Wow.
bar. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't hard work, but still, I mean, it's still a job. I mean.
Yeah. I mean, you're on your feet all day long.
Yeah,
That's tough work. Believe me.
absolutely.
Now, see, my experience was a little bit different because we were sitting down a lot of time between driving the trams because I was on the tram team. And so we were, constantly sitting down, driving the tram. We were sitting down when we were doing the tours. The only time we were really standing is if we were doing dispatch or queue management, or if we were doing the AFI, which was the exit of the tram tour. Other times we were on our break, we were sitting down. So I feel bad for you, man. That sucks.
No, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I mean, you get used to it, to be honest. I mean, you kind of just zone out and just do it. As bad as it sounds. I don't mean that in a bad way, but, just part of it.
Okay, so well, I'm curious. Okay, I worked there in 2001.
Yeah.
I had a management team that was extremely encouraging. We had a management team that did not micromanage us. They let us do our own thing unless you really screwed up somehow on like a tour during an audit or something, or had some sort of like an HR issue. We didn't really, I mean, our management was there, but they were extremely encouraging with us and always, encouraging our growth within the company. They were very supportive. My coworkers were great. We spent a lot of time together outside of work. We had a good time together. So, how did that differ, or did it differ at all from your experience working at Disney parks?
Well, I mean, it just kind of depends. So we were really, well, let me start with the leaders and management. So they weren't really involved with the day-to-day stuff as far as us seeing them on stage or at our location. They were kind of just back in the office taking care of things. The only ones that were really truly there were our coordinators, and we had some of the best coordinators. I mean, would do anything for those people because they would do the same for you. Now the management and the leaders, I can't say the same because they'd be gone all day for 8 hours. Behind a computer, maybe. I don't know. I didn't see them. So there's a big disconnect. And there'd be times, especially in the holiday season, when we would have lines out the door. And not just out the door, but going down the street that we have to make a queue with stanchions down the pathway because everyone wants a hot
Everyone
chocolate.
needs their Starbucks.
Yes, they need their fix. And we would be slammed, and the leaders wouldn't know how to make drinks. They don't know how to do anything. And so they would just kind of just stand there and pretend to help, but they would just be in the way. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like trying to reteach someone. Right, just show them how to do what they should already know. So that was I don't know. I didn't really appreciate that, I guess.
I will say then that is something that our management had in common. So our leaders and managers, they did not know how to run the attraction. They did not know the spiel. They did not know how to drive the trams or anything like that. Our trainers did. So a lot of the trainers, they were cross-trained in other attractions and did all the training for us when we were coming in for doing the spiel and driving the trams and stuff like that. But yeah, our actual overarching managers, they were there just kind of encouraging us to move on in the career and like what we could do to move up with Disney. But yeah, they weren't there to show us the ins and outs of how to run the attraction. So I guess that's something that, hey, they got to do the back office stuff. So Cool.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And those spring break crowds, man. I guess from depending on when you started, did you get a true spring break? Because your spring break would have been COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I started in August 2019, and I was there from April of 2021. So I was kind of, I guess, right at the very beginning or end of a spring break, but I don't think it really was a true spring break for anyone in the world during that time. But the busiest parts were the holidays, the
Yep.
Christmas season, 100%.
Christmas, spring break, that Thanksgiving week in there. Anytime the kids are off school for an extended period of time,
Yes.
stay away from Orlando, folks.
Don't do it.
Yeah, and if you do not like crowds, that is not the place to be. I'm telling people right now, like with the Epic Universe drop, the May 22nd. I mean, I don't want to tell people to cancel their vacations for 2025, but with everything going on with Disney construction related, and with Epic opening up in May, I'm like, geez Louise, unless you're like an annual pass holder, I don't want to be anywhere near Orlando next year. I mean, I don't want to go to Universal probably until 2026.
No. I mean, I can imagine all the hotels being booked up, if not already, for Epic Universe. I mean, it's gonna be crazy.
Are you still living?
For a
Are you
while.
still living down there in Florida?
No. So I'm actually back home in Arkansas. So I left April 2021 and came right back home.
Okay. Do you miss it?
I miss parts of it. I think I miss the ability to go to the parks off work. I mean, that was the best perk. I mean, completely free.
Absolutely.
If I wasn't working, I'd be at the parks just by myself, just doing my own thing. And that's what I miss the most, because I am a Disney nerd. I mean, that's my number one thing. That's my number one thing is Disney, like the parks. So I miss that. But I don't miss going through all that stuff. And I think I made the right decision coming back home, because I met my partner, my wonderful partner, and I've started a business here, and I've got great connections with my career. And I think I would have struggled a little bit getting up that ladder in Orlando, because more competition, and also you're working for a big corporate company,
Right.
So I mean, that's what I think.
No, I totally feel you. And it's funny because I know, like, I've kind of gained notoriety as being a person who rants on Disney a lot, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because, yeah, I'm a Disney nerd as well. I love the parks. I have an absolute passion for the parks. I want to see the parks succeed. I want to see the parks get back to where they were back in what I kind of consider the golden era, around the time when I was working there, and into the 2000s. And I feel like there's been a lot of poor decisions. So I'm criticizing the company, but at the same time, I am still that Disney nerd. I am still the person who wells up when I see Tinkerbell and the characters walking around Main Street, and I nerd out at all the attractions when they open up. And I'm still that person, and I'm sure you are too. I mean, even as a former parks employee, you still have that love for the company, right?
Oh, absolutely. We just recently visited Disneyland, and it was a completely new experience. I'd never been there before, and I had moments where I had tears in my eyes, because it was just a first time experience all over again, and just seeing parents with their kids, and that wonderful connection, or moment, I should say, that they're having. It's a privilege, of course, to take your kid to Disney, but it's just so magical to be able to give your kid that, and kind of seeing that from a bystander gets me excited to do that one day myself. But it's just so magical. I mean, I haven't lost my love for the company or the parks or anything, but it's just like a tainted love, I guess.
I would say, okay, I see. I guess I could say I've lost my love for the company, but not for the
Right.
parks, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And in my comments a lot, and I mean, I guess I'll clarify this. In my comments, I get a lot of people who are like, "Oh, you're just a disgruntled former employee. You probably got fired and let go." And that's not further from the truth. I left on very good terms. I'm not sure what your experience was. I've been contacted for years following my time at Disney, asking me to come back to work there when they've been looking for employees, and I left on very good terms. So I have no issues whatsoever with my departure. I know you had a little bit of a different experience. So tell me, a little bit about what happened with you. Actually, let's not jump ahead just yet. Let's talk about your time during COVID, and then we'll get into that, because it kind of plays in together, right?
Mm-hmm. So whenever COVID first hit, which was March of 2020, I was working that evening, and we were closing, and we closed by 9 o'clock. I think the park closes at 8, sometimes earlier, and we always close an hour after the park closes. And so we had finished up all of our stuff for closing, and our coordinator, or it might have been our leader, I can't remember, it probably was the leader, after we had finished, gathered us up and was like, hey guys, we're going to be closed for just like 2 weeks, no big deal, you're all being paid, and we'll come right back. Like, we're not going to miss a beat, it'll just be 2 weeks, whatever.
And so 2 weeks, that's what they rolled with. They told you you're going to be gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But you had no notice before that. You didn't have any warning.
No, so we had nothing. And so we're all getting excited because we're thinking like, hey, this is a paid vacation. Like, we can go back home, visit family, we can go somewhere fun, because that was before we knew what was going on. And we were all just so stoked and so excited for this break. And then for some of us, or actually for all of us, I think they, actually have it right here. We got in, so this is, I'll summarize this. So we had an operational update on March 12th at 8:20 p.m. And essentially it's out of abundance of caution. We're closing the parks starting on March 15th through the end of the month. And it says that the company will pay its cast members during the closure period, and the hotels will remain open. But unfortunately, of course, the parks, closed, and no guests or cast members were coming in, or majority of them. Right. And over half of all cast members got furloughed. There were 43,000 cast members who got furloughed, and I was one of them, unfortunately. And the Orlando, the parks in Orlando employ, I think, like 77,000 people. So that's like over half of all casts were furloughed, which is a big deal.
Wow.
And so, yeah, like I had no idea what to do. And I think I got a call from the casting or HR, something like that, saying that I was essentially furloughed, like really furloughed, and don't know when I'd come back, and good luck. It's kind of what it was. And I didn't hear back for months. And the parks reopened, I think, like 2 months after COVID kind of hit, or maybe 3 months. It wasn't too long. It was definitely still late spring or early summer. And the cast members who got to come back in my location first were the ones with the highest seniority. Mm-hmm. And so they came back first, which is like the morning crew. They always had the highest seniority. And I didn't come back until July, I think. Let me make sure. Yeah, I didn't come back until July. So I was completely no pay, no nothing.
It's 4 months, man.
Yeah. And so I had to apply for unemployment, as many of us did during that time. And, I was only making $13 an hour at Starbucks at Disney. And so that was a really tough time to go through all of that, especially being so far away from home, not having, mom or anyone to kind of, not depend on, but just have there someone to talk to. I guess. It is very, very isolating.
So you were just alone down in Florida?
Yep. Yeah. And
That's
it
sad.
was very, very sad. But eventually I came back, and it was so different coming back. I mean, the company and working for it was phenomenal. From 2019 up until the closure of the parks, I mean, it seemed like everything in the world was looking up. I mean, Galaxy's Edge had just opened, and so many big things are on the horizon. And coming back, it was just like a shell of itself. And I think all the cast members during that time felt that. And I won't say people were putting on a mask, but you could definitely tell that nobody was really happy during that time. It was just very stressful. And it just wasn't a good time coming back.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can imagine that. I was a guest at that point. We actually had a trip down there that was supposed to be in June. Yeah, I think it was supposed to be in June, May or June. We had a trip, so it got canceled because the parks were closed, and it was frustrating. I mean, obviously, why the parks had to close and everything that was going on, but yeah, there was a concern for the employees, like what was going on. There was a lot of just so much that was up in the air because no one knew when the parks were going to reopen. I felt like there was a lot of like radio silence from the company. There wasn't a whole lot of idea when they would reopen, and then they kind of like, oh, we're going to be reopening. If I remember right, it was just kind of like, yeah, we're going to be reopened at a limited capacity. I think what it was like July maybe.
Yes, yeah, and they actually opened Disney Springs up first a few weeks before. I guess that's kind of like a trial run because I'm not sure if you saw it on your trip, but they had like the lines, like the 6 feet lines, and you have to wait with your party at those little marks. And Disney Springs was like a test pilot for all these new implementations. So that was kind of crazy to see before it came over to the parks.
We did not reschedule our trip until 2022. So we waited until 2022 to go back, and there were still the remnants of some of the 6 foot signs and stuff. And like, it's funny because like those weren't in place, like the masking requirements and stuff were not in place when we did our trip finally. But there was still like some leftover signage and stuff on the ground. Every now and then you would see like, it's like, please keep your 6 foot distance. Now, that 6 foot distance, that ended up being a little bit crucial for you, right?
It was. So, I mean, if you walk into any Starbucks, you have the baristas behind the bars in pretty close proximity to one another. And it's no different at Disney World. It's all the same operation. Well, whenever we came back, our leaders or whoever made the decision changed a lot of how we do things. And of course we had to wear a mask. I mean, that was anywhere. And I will say, when we first came back, we had these masks before like the Disney ones you see now, and it legit was scraps of costumes that they would find, and they were so ugly. Like I think I have a picture somewhere, and they were so uncomfortable and it was so tight around your ears. But like everyone had different pieces of fabric, and like some would be thick, some would be thin. Before they finally gave us like the costumed masks. But in addition to those masks, at Starbucks, if we were on cold bar or hot bar or any position that was less than 6 feet from another cast member, we had to wear, on top of a mask, a visor. And so
sneeze guard.
yeah, the sneeze guard. And so you're just making these drinks, and I mean, of course, like when you're making drinks, you splash things. So your visor just looks nasty, and it's just hot. Oh. It's hot in general, but I mean, you have a mask and that on, and you're breathing out, and like the frost or the steam is on the visor. It was gross. And so they changed a lot of things, and the 6 foot rule, being the biggest, of course. Well, allegedly, I was outside greeting guests, which is one of my favorite things to do. And apparently I was caught being less than 6 feet from another cast member. And that's when everything went downhill. I mean, I was already, or not just me, but everyone was kind of in a bad state of mind. I mean, rightfully so. And that was in January of 2021 that I got in trouble. And so they brought me back to, like the office in Pizza Fari. And it was like the main food and beverage leader in our area over our location. And it was her and another leader who was below the big leader, and myself and a union representative. And they just sat me down and just kind of just laid out on the table saying that I was less than 6 feet from this person. And I couldn't even recall like what they were talking about. I'm saying, like, I don't really know what the motive was or anything. I mean, I was a good cast member. I had such a love and passion for the company. I worked hard every single day. And I just felt so betrayed in that moment. I really did, because I had no idea what they were talking about. And I did lose it during that point, because I just felt so attacked, and I was all by myself, and they accused me of something that I did not do. And if I did, it wasn't with any malintent. Like, I mean, sometimes if you're rotating your position, like, yeah, you're less than 6 feet from someone, you might talk to them for a few seconds. It's okay. And yeah, so I lost it. I didn't know what to do. And they had a union representative pull me aside after they kind of told me the situation. And she was so sweet. I feel like she was like my angel in that moment. And she pulled me aside and was like, listen, I can't do anything to help you until you sign this document. And it was, to join the union, the food and beverage one. And the moment that I signed that, it was like everything went away. Like in that second, like we came back and sat down with them. They saw the document signed and everything, and they were just like hands off. Like I was untouchable. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of strange. I took a picture. I'm very glad that I did. I took a picture of my statement. And this is, the document says statement of subject. Like I'm a criminal.
Whoa. Wow.
I know, and
That's
so
insane,
it
man.
has my personnel ID, everything on this document. And what I wrote down was, all I can recall is never leaving my position. Coworkers approached me. I answered their questions and continued my tasks. Everyone knows to stay 6 feet apart. So as I answer their questions, I actively stay away and step apart to maintain my physical distance. And I was writing that with like tears in my eyes, you know? I mean, it was such a difficult time. And yeah, so I signed that document and I walked out of that office and things resumed like it never happened. No one brought it up. Nothing happened. Nothing happened.
And then some time went by, and you said you just kind of felt like things were just different, like everything, the whole world had changed for you, and it just didn't feel the same, right?
Yeah, no, and I think that kind of triggered something where I felt worthless as far as the company and where I can go because I come from an entertainment background and seeing all of these entertainment technicians and performers get fired and furloughed for who knows how long, I just didn't think I want to stick around and watch all that happen, I guess, because I didn't know when I'd actually go to my real position in entertainment. And I think I can't remember for certain, but I think a lot of people were leaving my location at that time, which led to shortages. And I have pictures from CDS of my schedule. There is one, and I mean this was for a few weeks back to back, where I'm working 12-hour shifts, 3 days in a row. I'm working about 60. What does it say? 53 hours one week, 63.5 another week. And you're working opening to close, back to back. And I think it was just burnout, to be honest, of being worked so hard. And on top of that, I'm sorry I keep referencing all these photos and everything. So in January of 2021, I got in trouble. And in February 2021 is, I guess, when crap started hitting the fan, maybe like with my leaders. Because on the fridges backstage, they had like 3 different pieces of paper taped up, and it was called an action planning progress report. And it has all of our leaders in a spreadsheet. It has their name, it has what action category that they need to be working on, and as well as feedback from, I guess, the cast members. I remember putting in feedback. Maybe I did. I probably blocked it out at this point. And the leader who pulled me into the office, I just want to quickly read some of the things that the cast feedback gave for them. So it says, let me find it real quick.
Wow. I mean, it's just crazy the differences that we had. I mean, I luckily I didn't have those long hours.
Oh my gosh.
That'd have been nuts.
Yeah, I mean, and you're standing all day too. So here's some of the feedback. So it says, and this is from everyone. This is from the entire location. Mental health, not good. We would like EAP on site. Leaders are not on the same page. They need to improve their communication with each other. They all have different answers. Leaders blame cast members for not doing something right, but they stop communicating 7 days before implementing something. Leaders are not following up with cast members. When they're asked a question, casts have to hunt them down to get that answer. Casts do not feel comfortable giving their leaders feedback. They feel their leaders treat them differently when they dislike the feedback given. And cast members want the leaders to say good morning or good afternoon to them. So, and I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, this is 3 pages of feedback that I have. And that was just for the person who pulled me into the office, the main one that day. So that kind of tells you where things are going at my location.
Jeez. Yeah, you shouldn't have taken the food and beverage job.
No, I should have friendship boats. Yeah.
Yeah, the friendship boats were where it's at. They need the transportation over in Epcot.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, yeah, I mean, the hours, I guess I lucked out because, yeah, for my hours, we had to pull the tram. We usually got there about an hour or so before the park would open. And then for our attraction, we closed early. If the park was open late till like 9 o'clock, usually, MGM Studios never stays open past 9, once that last Fantasmic show runs. But our attraction closed down well before that. Usually the latest we would be open would be like 7, because once it starts getting dark, you weren't seeing anything on the back lot. And Catastrophe Canyon really wasn't, that lit up or anything. So, yeah, we didn't have long hours. Even if you worked all day, it really wasn't that bad.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was actually going to ask you, did you get the opportunity to like moonlight or do any other jobs anywhere else to pick up hours? Well, not with your schedule. What the hell? You wouldn't want
No.
to pick up hours at all.
I had no time. I mean, it'd be, and the crazy thing is, it's like with the shifts, they wouldn't make it a full 12 hours. Sometimes they would if they needed to, but they would break it up into two shifts to where it'd be like 7 hours and 45 minutes, just so they wouldn't have to give you a full hour long break. And that was some crazy stuff. Like we'd work like 6 hours and 45 minutes just so they wouldn't have to give us a whole hour paid lunch. And going back to like the closing thing, like, you said that you got kind of lucky with the tram tour not having to stay so late. Same thing with us, because thankfully Animal Kingdom always closed the earliest. They're the first ones to close every single night because of the animals being put up. So we were always out there super super early, like 9 o'clock was usually the time that we would be out the door, heading home. Thankfully.
Now, see, I'm curious. So my wife, she was down there. We worked together, and she worked over at the Emporium on Main Street. Mm-hmm. And so her shifts, I don't know if they still do this, because you said you had to stay there for 1 hour after the park closed. Mm-hmm. Now, she would close down Magic Kingdom, and they wouldn't kick people out. Back in 2001, you could stay as late as you wanted. If you were in the shops or at a restaurant, man, they would just keep it open for you. So there were like her typical shift, she would not get out of there till like 2 a.m. If Magic Kingdom was open until midnight, she wasn't getting out till like 3 a.m. because people just hung out and stayed in the Emporium and shopped and were over at Casey's getting food. And that was one of her biggest issues, was just how long she had to stay because people weren't leaving. And then even when they finally did get the last guests out, that's when they were doing all the folding and getting everything back on shelves and stocking and all that good stuff. So we didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully for us, like the moment that the like 8 o'clock would hit, we would close our like entrance doors, and so we still had guests in the queue, or guests waiting for the beverages. Obviously, we would help them, of course. And then the moment that the last guest left Starbucks, we would like lock all the doors, and then we could do all of our closing stuff, even if people are still kind of funneling out of the parks. We could still do our stuff. And some people like would knock on the door and stuff like that, and it would kind of hide sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Well, for me, they did offer us the ability to pick up some hours because I had a production background as well, mm-hmm. with video production, TV production, and radio production. So we were able to pick up hours for myself doing production assistant work when they had actual productions coming through, which is kind of cool. That's where I got my my pin, my Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Play It grand opening pin. I was actually with Regis Philbin and stuff when they were opening that because they were filming down there. So that was neat. I did like Rosie O'Donnell's show and some other things. But then we also made easy money when they would run the fireworks at night for some special times during the year when, crowds were insane. And we would just stand backstage and watch for the stupid fireworks canisters to fall. And we would have to mark where they were for the fireworks, the pyro people. So we just got to watch fireworks and get paid. That was pretty easy.
But the catch is with that one is you don't need a pyrotechnics license.
At least not in 2001. There was no license.
Right.
They were just pulling any Joe Schmo saying like, hey, come and watch the fireworks. And if you see a canister fall, then you just got to mark it for us and show us where it's at afterwards. So, and there was a bunch of us all around the back lot.
Did they by chance give y'all like fire extinguishers or anything, like just in case? Or like what would be the protocol in case something was like lit or like still on fire?
No, the protocol was, we had walkie-talkies to let the pyro team know if there was any kind of issues like that. We did not have any fire extinguishers or anything like that. We were strictly told that we were just to report it if we found anything. We were there just to mark, off if we saw anything. And yeah, we just had to report it. So no, I was not a fire extinguisher guy or running around trying to put out any kind of pyrotechnics. Never had any issues. It was literally just watching fireworks and having a good time making money.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, now I want to kind of touch base with you a little bit as a fan, right? So we're both fans of the parks. We've kind of said that. But how do you feel the company is doing recently with some of the decisions they've made that a lot of people are unhappy with? A lot of people are more starting to lean towards Universal, where in the past, Universal wasn't even on Disney's radar, honestly. And now there's more and more people heading to Universal these days because of some of the decisions that the Disney parks higher ups have made. You were under the Chapek regime.
Mm-hmm.
and now we're back under Iger. Even though, from what I'm hearing, we were never really away from Iger. So, what's your takes on some of the decisions that are getting made now?
I think we're really living an interesting time in the company's history right now. I think there's a lot of, don't want to say turmoil or anything. I think that's too extreme, but there's just a lot of change happening, whether it be for the good or the bad. Particularly with, like in Magic Kingdom with the new Cars Land expansion, kind of taking over the river and everything. I think that's kind of crazy. I really, really do. I think that the river adds such a beautiful element to the theming of Magic Kingdom, especially. Oh my gosh, going blank. Frontierland, right?
Yeah, Frontierland.
Yes. Don't know why
it's such a beautiful ambiance, especially in the evening, like going through there and just seeing Tom Sawyer's Island lit up, and it's sad.
Yeah, it really, really is, and they have all this land. I mean, this land is the size of Manhattan. I don't know why they don't expand and go kind of just build into addition what's already there, if that makes sense. Or even,
sure.
I mean, heck, look at Epic Universe. Why don't they just make a fifth park? I mean, I would expect the money to be there. I would expect, everything else to be there for them to do so. I mean, who's waiting on a green light? I think that there's really interesting competition right now between Universal and Disney, because, when Universal first opened, I think Disney saw them as less than, or,
for sure.
That their guests wouldn't drive up the interstate to go visit. But I think now, it's kind of the opposite. I think Universal has the upper hand, who's kind of looking down on Disney saying, what are you doing right now? You're not making your guests happy. Because, I mean, Disney's already working vacation, as it is, of course. But I don't think guests are happy paying all these extra fees and all these extra services that aren't really needed. They're needed if you want to, I guess, have a good time and do what you really want to do with like the lightning lanes and everything.
Right.
But I think Disney is adding so many different layers of confusion and complexity, and of course price with that. And not all families can afford that. And as you and I talked on my podcast, they're pricing out the normies, and I don't think that's
Team
okay.
Normie.
Yeah, Team Normie. So it's just a very interesting time, and I think that Universal is going to have a major benefit right now, and I think Disney is kind of looking around like, what do we do? What happened? Because for 40, 50 years now, they have been the number one, but I think they're being demoted a little bit to maybe the number 2 spot, or maybe 1.5 spot. But I hope they're taking notice in it, and I hope they're proactively changing a few things to make the guest, feel like their money's being spent well, and that the guests can have a good time. But also not taking away attractions, such as the steamboat and everything, and giving their guests more to do, for the same price, I think.
Yeah, one of the issues, obviously, which stems back to kind of when you were an employee, they started taking away, a lot of the perks that were free, like the free parking at the resorts they took away. They took away the Magic Express. They've monetized Fast Pass and so many more things that you're paying for now that you never had to pay for. And then on top of that, there's all these new experiences, lightning lanes, all these things that you're paying for. The ticketing now for like the Very Merry Christmas party and the Halloween party is insane. And they're pricing people out and using that, I feel like, crowd control because the parks are so insane. But yeah, as people that love the parks, man, we just got to hope that the decision makers start making some wise decisions. Let's get Disney back in the driver's seat again, I guess.
I hope so. Somebody needs to drive this tram in the right direction.
I love that analogy. All right. Well, hey, man, time is flying by. We're over 40 minutes deep in this thing.
Wow.
I want you to tell me a little bit about your podcast. I had a great time with my experience with it, but I know there's a call out for other theme park employees that you want to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find my podcast, which is called Confessions of a Theme Park Employee. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Podcasts, and a few other places. And if you are a cast member, and not even just a cast member, if you're a theme park employee or entertainment employee of any kind, doesn't have to be Disney, it can be Universal, or anywhere, even international. I'd love to have you on the podcast to share your stories and confessions. And you can email me at, I think it's Theme Park Confessions. Can we pause real quick?
Sure.
I'm
Hey,
so
whatever.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I know I emailed you earlier, but I don't know it off the top of my head. But yeah, it's like themeparkconfessions@gmail.com.
I always mess it up. I'm so bad. Okay. Theme Park Confession Podcast.
Yeah. Confessions of, you know what? We will link to it in the comments. I'm gonna link to my episode because it was a great fun conversation. Even though I hate hearing myself talk, I cannot stand the way I sound when I go back and hear myself talk. But it was a great time. We had a great conversation, and I had a great time chatting with you here tonight. And there's a lot of stuff we haven't even gotten into, some of the cool stories that I have from my time working attractions and your time working, specialty food and beverage specialty. I wonder what else is specialty besides Starbucks.
I mean,
is there anything else? Is that it?
I think there's like maybe one other location that has specialty food and beverage, but the only reason why we recall that is because they're making, special beverages. Maybe I
couldn't even
know.
Try. You
exactly.
couldn't even drink them.
It's crazy.
I hate to say a little behind the scenes. You said in your episode 1 that you basically were lying to the guests when the guests would ask you what a drink was like. You would be lying to the guests, saying like what you thought it would be like, and like, oh, it's great. And
it was all acting. Yeah, we had no idea what maybe like half of the drinks would taste like because we could never try them. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, you would think if they roll out with a new drink, they're going to let you try it so you could let the guests know, like, yeah, this is a great drink. It's got notes of this, and this in it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sweet, or maybe it's a little tart. No, it's just like, they're going to ask you, like, hey, what would you recommend? Mm-hmm. And you just lied to them. You were told just to lie to the guests. Meanwhile, in 2001, we were just told, like, no, you bend over backwards for the guest. You treat them with respect. And you're over here lying to the guests over at Animal Kingdom, man.
Just do my job,
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing you didn't. Would it have been a demotion if you would have got put on, like, the food carts and you were having to walk around the food carts in the park?
Man, honestly, I think that probably would have been our Honey the Shrunk the Kids, castaway. That's role, because our location was actually directly next to, or it was next to Pizzafari, and behind Pizzafari was all the ODV, or the outdoor vending carts, whatever they call them, and that was like their station. And I felt so bad for them because they'd just be sweating all in that heat, just standing. Props to them, because I know it's a hard job, harder than mine was.
Animal Kingdom is that's like the hottest park, I feel like. Or one of the hottest. I feel like there's just something about Animal Kingdom that just hits different with the humidity and the heat.
It really does. I don't know what's in the air, but something is there.
Yeah, maybe it's just like the tropical trees holding in like all that moisture. Right. I don't know what it is. And then you got the animals roaming around. And I go and listen to episode 1 because you tell some crazy stuff down there about, like, especially what was stinking down in the backstage area.
Yes.
You need to listen to episode 1. And then listen to my episode 2, but episode 1's got some good stuff in it. So, well, dude, thank you so much for your time. I definitely want to do this again so we could dive into some of our crazier stories. I know tonight was like a little bit different, but I know we've kind of talked about this. We're going to do like a live session coming up, where we're going to just be like talking to the guests, anyone who wants to join us live, and we'll be answering your questions about our times with the parks, which I think will be a great, great time. And hopefully we'll do that soon.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, and I greatly appreciate you bringing me on and being on my show, on my podcast. And for those out there who are watching, please go listen to episode 2. I mean, he gave some great behind the scenes facts and about the operations, and some really cool stuff along the way about special celebrities that he came in contact with. So definitely go give it a listen.
I actually haven't told you my best story from when I worked there, but I wasn't actually working. I was off the clock during my coolest celebrity encounter, but I'll have to do that for a separate video, I guess, because that's kind of a long story. Well, actually, see, I could sit here and pick your brain all night. Oh shoot, no, it wouldn't have been. So Monday nights used to be employee nights back at what was downtown Disney? Oh shoot, what was the stupid club district? I forget the name of it.
Oh,
Pleasure
Paradise?
Island.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, yeah.
Pleasure Island. See, you guys never got to experience that. When I worked there, Pleasure Island, Monday night, that was employee nights. So you got to get in for free. So if you were ever at Pleasure Island on a Monday night, man, that's where all the employees were.
Man, that is so cool. I'm jealous.
And that sets up my one of my biggest celebrity stories from then. So I'll
Stay
leave you with that.
tuned.
Yeah, exactly. You got to stay tuned for more. All right. Well, thank you, Griffin. Thank you so much, dude, for joining us. We're going to wrap this up. And yeah, check out the Confessions of a Theme Park Employee podcast. It's a banger. And good luck and in all your future endeavors. And we will chat soon again, my friend.
Thank you. See you guys later.
All right. Have a magical evening.